It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Divas That Care. My name is Candace Gish. If this is your very first tuning into the Divas, a huge welcome. We've been doing this now for about 15 years, and we're listened to in 80 countries around the world. We have hosts that have been with us over the years, and we're so grateful that you have joined us today. I am very excited. We're going to be welcoming a new diva to our family. Her name is Dana Grant. Welcome to the Divas That Care.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Candace. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you. I can't wait to get to know you better.
Ditto. I love our conversation so far. I can just see a like-heartedness. It's just
this is going to be so much fun. Dana, before we kind of dive into a few things that I have, would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners today?
Well, sure. Let's see. What information do you want to know? Like, I'm in California. I'm a mom of 3 grown daughters. I travel doing international retreats. I could lead with my work, but I think what we do is we incorporate it into our life as well. And I think my work is kind of my life as an empty nester now. And I just wrote a book, The Truth Within the Lie. So I think that the work I do is I've always been an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur, and I co-founded the first cauliflower pizza crust company. And then through that, I think there was deep exploration through this process of I had already started doing personal development. So if you would have told me in my 20s that I was a federal lobbyist, that I would now be an international intuitive life coach and do VIP days all over the world, I would say, oh, no, I'm not interested in doing that. But that's exactly what I do. I help people get very clear on where they're going and what it is they want and desire.
I love that. And that is so cool that you had said you're the mother of 3 daughters. I have 4 daughters myself. And my third is going to college in a couple of weeks here. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it is amazing. I love talking to boss moms, I guess you could say, of daughters, because it's really neat. It's a different experience, I think. For myself, I always thought, honestly, if you would talk to my husband, I'm like, I thought we would have boys. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've always been a sportsy kind of person, but I'm like, having girls really changed my life in a really good way. And I really started the Divas That Care is because of having my daughters, because I wanted them to be inspired by women like yourself that could do anything. And
I love that,
so
Candace.
Thank you so much for, just kind of briefly sharing your story there. One of the things that we're going to be talking about today is that you are an extraordinary podcaster also. And I don't get the opportunity to interview other podcasters. So tell me, why did you decide to get into that?
That was another heart-centered decision. I think that when I started identifying how the ego shows up in my life, I mean, if we're any good life coach out there, if I like to think of more of as a life mentor, not life coach, but I had to look at where the ego was showing up and protecting me in my life. And this heart-centered stories were protected. I wasn't sharing them, things that could be deeply transformational for people to know about my own life. They look at it and they think, oh, what a beautiful, blessed life. And then my life epically blew up and fell apart, a long-term marriage. And there was crisis after crisis that I didn't share. And the ego protected me from that. So I think the healing and the heart-centered conversations are what made me dive in to the podcasting. And that's what they are. They're heart-centered entrepreneurships. I'm pulling the curtain back and what makes people show up and do what they do. And I want to know where they started and all the shattered, all the heartbreak in between. Because I don't think we need another podcast show that just shows the gloss and the glitz and how great life is. I want to pull it back and say, this is where they were and this is what they're doing now. And this is a transformation that can work for you too. It's possible.
It is possible. Oh my goodness, wonderful words. So tell us a little bit about some of the podcasts that you do. You say you dive right into things. So kind of explain a little bit about that to us.
Well, I taped one this morning, so let's just put him on the hot seat. It was Dr. Rob Kelly. He'll be released in the next couple of months. He when I came across him, he was an introduction from a PR team, and I read his story, and I said, this just can't be. And so I read his story, and it was so moving. But to hear him tell it, I mean, I think it was an hour taping due to the fact we cried so much throughout it. And this is not uncommon, in this process. So he was, a backup person at music, Oxford, living in Manchester, and for Eric Clapton, huge names. And then alcoholism, which he started at 9, he took him to the streets. He was living on the streets. I mean, he bottomed out at a level that most of us can't even imagine. And he now is running a facility and has been sober for 2 decades in Dallas, and helps people on neuroplasticity. He really is looking at changing the relationship to alcoholism. And he took it was a beautiful conversation. So we actually went through his story first, how he recovered, what that looked like, his relationship to, I mean, the bottom falling out, and then the bottom falling out underneath that, and then his recovery back, and how he paid it forward. And it was nothing short of a miracle. And I love to show people that anything is possible. So usually when I look at stories that are coming on the podcast show, I want a life like my life. Most people would not expect me to come from where I came from, go through the ebbs and flows and the losses and the betrayals. And, my book is about that, the truth within the lie. The subconscious wants to protect us, and the ego, and tells us these stories. And the truth is that there's a version of us that hasn't shown up yet. And that can be very frightening. Just the newness of that can be frightening. So I think that that's what the podcast show really is about. It is about evolution and people doing great things in the world, but how they got there.
Yeah. And that they're not alone.
Yeah, precisely. And pulling the shame out of it, and even the word addiction in this podcast, we broke that down and talked about, even the word addiction will scare people and the shame attached to it. So I just want to remove the shame and let everyone know that these heart-centered conversations are about love and compassion, and that if we can change one life, I feel like my job is done. And, the podcast started this year. You've been on for 15 years. I started it this year. Just like, wow. I was just ready to go. 7 years ago, I said I was going to do it. I said I was going to write a book, and it's taken all of this time. When I was ready, I was ready. And now I'm in the top 2% of pod. And I thought, how did that happen? I really didn't seek out anything with the exception of calling in people that I really wanted to hear their story if they were willing to share it. Mm-hmm. And that's my first question. Is there anything off limits? Can we go into the depths of where you were and the recovery?
I love that. That's exactly what we're needing. A podcast like yours is what the world needs right now. They need to hear these stories. They need to know that they're not alone. And so for our listeners, the podcast name is The Dana Grant Show. So you guys got to go check that out. And we will be posting your information, Dana, just so that you know, because I really want people to go check out your podcast.
Oh, thank you, Candace. Yeah.
So you were mentioning that you started this you've been doing this a year now, which is absolutely fantastic. And I can't wait to really share this with our tribe of divas out there. How long have you been doing the life coaching, the speaking, the workshops and stuff? But you've been doing all that. So it kind of amalgamated into this podcast. But how long were you doing all the other stuff?
It started if I look at about 7-8 years ago, I started Dana Grant Coaching. Well, with Cali'Flour Foods was the cauliflower pizza crust company. And from there, I started Cali Soul Coaching. So I think I struggled for about a year before I took my name and really just let go of the identity of creating that company, let go of the idea of being a top lobbyist, let go of the success that I had to start over, like square one. And I rebuilt it, in fact, danagrant.com wasn't even available. I think I had to do thedanagrant.com, which we're still merging. And I finally did by my name, but which was really great.
That's awesome.
About 7 years now. And it just evolved. It went very quickly. I think that my willingness to be vulnerable and new, and I think a lot of people don't want to be new, don't want to be vulnerable. And, I have grown daughters that are 37, 35, 27. And I think I'm at an age now where I care less about being new, about what people think. And I'm more very committed to this process of being of service and letting people know that you're not alone. We are all connected. We all have, pieces of us that have been shattered and broken. And I think it's women coming together, I believe in women supporting women. And when women say they support women, I definitely want to see the actions, not just women supporting women, but how do you support women? I'm a big believer that we all are interconnected and we can all help each other on multiple levels.
I couldn't agree with you more right there. I
Yeah.
applaud you with saying that because it is a challenge. Some
Yeah.
people, and I honestly think there's been an evolution, there's been a growth, there's been this almost this awakening that's happening on a global scale where women are starting to really look at themselves not as competition, but as partners and collaborators in a greater good. And I love
Absolutely.
it when you have podcasts like yours that are really, showcasing that.
There couldn't be any bigger truth than that said right there. Women are waking up and they are. I've had so many women reach out and say, "Hey, how can I support your book? How can I genuinely help you?" And I'm sometimes taken back because sometimes we feel like the Lone Ranger out there. We're like, "I've got to do all this." Well, we don't, but we do have to ask for help. And I think that it's important. I think that's the vulnerability part. We don't like to ask for help because as women, we are the caretakers, we are the doers. We are the organizers. We are the leaders. And I often say that money follows authority. If you are not the authority in your business or your life, there isn't anything that's going to follow you. You're going to be tripping all over the place, and so is the rest of your life. And so
We're
we
the
really
jack of
want,
all trades.
yeah, absolutely. We wear a lot of hats and we have to lead in every one of those areas. But I have learned the more we can flow and not push, and the more we can ask for help, and the more vulnerability we can share, there's so much power in that.
I love hearing that. Like, actually, that's been something that I've really struggled with over the years is doing that. When we started the podcast, it was about that. It was finding women, finding a tribe because we all felt
Yeah.
like we were alone and we didn't know what to do. And it's kind of evolved from there. But seeing you is just, it brings a smile to my face because it's like, this is what I've always envisioned as more women like yourself out there and really inspiring so many people. It's like, we got this. We got this together. We can do this. Let's work together. Let's support one another. And that kind of leads me into your book because this book is going to change people's lives. And I want you, if you don't mind, sharing a little bit about this book and when it's coming out and how our tribe can support you in that.
Oh, thank you, Candace. Well, I did not think it would be called The Truth Within the Lie. The book evolved as well. Um, it was such a big surprise when I finished it. It wasn't at all what I had originally thought I was going to write, but it's exactly what I needed to write. And I think that we don't want to kill the ego. We want to just quiet it down so the soul can expand. I mean, our heart energy, our soul doesn't even recognize the attack. It's the ego that does. So, it's about receiving the ebb and flow of that. It's also about using a lot of modalities in healing. I give 14 universal laws that I start with, but I start with a story in my life, 14 pretty deep stories of my life and how I healed. And I don't stop with just a universal law that they can utilize, but I break it down on what they can do. And I give a lot of information on how they do it, how they can do it. And because I think that we all need more information from multiple sources. It's not one and done. I like to keep it simple. I think there's so much complication out there. And I'm a huge believer in God. I have a lot of faith, but I also have no judgment. And I think that I say that with complete conviction that I had to first love every version of myself. And I talk about this in the book, and not judge and shame versions of myself that got me here. 60 years of getting here, I had to go back and love every version of me and be grateful. So the gratitude, the simple practices that we can do and implement every single day. There's something to be grateful for every day. And we hear this, but we don't often practice it. We're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, once this big problem is solved, I will then fix that. No, how about we just pivot and just stop, stay in the present moment, drop in and just tell me one thing you can be grateful for right now. Boom, shift, because you cannot be in the struggle and in gratitude at the same time. So I give a lot of information on that. And I keep it simple and I go deep.
And when does your book come out?
It comes out August 21st. Yep, the publishing house has a launch date of the 21st. And I suppose how everyone can support me is we have a link that will start. I probably shouldn't even talk about this, but because they're like, they start marketing on the 10th. It's the publishing house starts on the 10th, and they start releasing there won't be a pre-sale. There'll be a big, like book launching party on the 21st. And I would love it if everyone had a link and they could show up for the book launching party. I would love to have one incredible party. We're going to have giveaways. We're going to have signed books. We're going to have free books. I'm going to be giving away, which I don't do one-on-one coaching, like one-offs. It is packages. I will be giving away, one power sessions and readings, which being born and intuitive, we haven't talked about that. Being born and intuitive and being in this business space, it's given me this insight to go ahead and see things, and being a seer, and that's exactly what I am. I come back, I dump the pieces out, and I can ask better questions and navigate. So I don't do the 90-minute sessions anymore of readings because I don't really want to give people the answers, but I want to ask better questions. So we are going to be offering that, which is the first time in a long time that's available. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited to pay it forward and reach as many people as I can. And I'm hoping that this book, that I can show them that through my vulnerability and things I share it was difficult. It was difficult to share. I mean, there were many days of tears of like, I can't do this. And I did. I've been betrayed on multiple levels. I was married to a physician who lost his license and had sexual assault charges. I have been through the gamut. There isn't any area of the fire that I have not walked and not come out and built this empire. And I didn't do it alone. There were women that walked alongside of me, that supported me, just like you. How can we support you?
Yes. Will you have the link for that so that we can share with our listeners at a later date?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll get
We
that
will
to you.
definitely share with all of you guys that are listening today. I'll post it on the social media, and then I'll be posting it later on as soon as I get it from Dana.
Yeah.
Oh my
That would
gosh,
be
this
great.
has been so much fun, Dana. I know that our podcast isn't as long as I'd like it to be because there's a lot of topics that I'd like to dive into a little bit deeper. But
Yeah.
one of the things I do want to ask you today before we kind of end our program is, do you have any tips and tools for maybe some of our listeners today? This could be anything from business related, personal related. Our listeners a lot of the time are looking for motivation to improve their lives in some way or to help others. Could you support us in that, or could you give us some information and help us through that today?
Well, I usually go intuitively what dropped in, and what dropped in is most women do not have, a consistency problem. They have a commitment problem. They're consistent to the wrong commitment. So reevaluate your commitment in your life. Really write it out and see what it is. I look at, your core values and where the fear is, because usually that terror barrier in your life is going to pivot you back to the stories in your life, and you're going to want a different outcome from the same story. It's just not going to work. And, if we look at money, and everybody wants to build a business, and no matter what they come to me for, it's always usually about, sometimes they'll say more joy, more happiness, but it really is about more money. And, we make money from our strengths, and you spend money from your values. And, knowing these little bits of information, we can take it in and we can assess it. And I love to be a great assessor of the energy in our life, where we're showing up. What are we giving our energy to? Because our most dominant thought is the most powerful thought, because our life will follow our thought process and our actions. And I like to put the lens in front of it and ask myself this every day. Does this feel like love? I lost a lot of weight this past 2 years, and I gained it through the trauma, and and then I lost it, and it wasn't I want to be skinny again. That just didn't work anymore. But getting healthy, and I asked a different question every time I went to eat something. Does this feel like love? And it seemed to work, and it seems to work for a lot of people. So I think we have to reassess our relationship with self. It's never about the external. It is always about the internal. It's an inside job. And, if I could leave them with that just assess where your commitments are, where your loyalty packs are in your life, where are your non-negotiables, where is it that you are depleted? Are you even on the playing board? Because oftentimes, as we talked about, women tend to put themselves last. And I would say that is a struggle for them, because we're never going to rise above. I don't care what they build, what blueprint. they go to a workshop they go to with a new blueprint, they're never going to rise above their worthiness level of what they think they're capable of. So we want to raise that bar. We want to expand that energy. And the ego isn't going to do that, but the heart energy certainly is. So it is, for me, a very heart-centered work.
Oh, Dana, you and I are definitely going to have another conversation on expanding on that. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Candace, for having me. I love your energy. I love this connection. I can see that we're going to be soul sisters for a long time to come.
You know what? I was thinking the same thing. This was so much fun, and I can't wait to do more things with you. We're going to collaborate and do some great things, guys. Oh, and
I'm already smiling. Like my cheeks hurt because I'm smiling. You know, it's just, yeah. You can't see us, but I'm smiling. Yeah.
You're smiling, and so am I. Oh my gosh. I think the entire program, I smiled the entire time. This is, you know, I love conversations like this, Dana, to be honest. This was wonderful. I know that the change makers and the divas that are out there are really going to appreciate you today.
Oh, well, I hope so. I hope they're nodding their head and it resonates with them, and they're willing to make one change. You know, I often say it's just 1 degree. That's it. That's all you have to do is 1 degree. Not we get overwhelmed as women that we have to do it all, these quantum leaps, and we see all that. Disconnect from the world and just do one thing that moves that needle forward.
Oh my gosh. And that's something that I say here on the program. That's so funny you said that. My biggest thing is that work 1% better each day.
Oh, I love that. So see here, you know, and Candace, we're going to take it one step further. And I know we're going over time, but if we are in a plane, I want people to visualize this. I'm on a plane and I am 1 degree off. That means I am 360 miles off from my trajectory. I want to land on this island. I am in a completely different part of the world. 360 miles. That's just 1 degree. I want them to think about where they're off 1 degree in their life. You know, just assess there. Yeah.
Yep. That is so powerful. You know what? We're going to be using this analogy, I think, in our fall podcast that we do together.
Excellent. I love it. I love it. I'm all in. I told you I'm all in.
And I just want to do a big shout out to all our amazing listeners out there. You know, make sure that you check out Dana Grant's information. I'm going to be posting it everywhere, all over social media. I think it's really important to go check her out and to also support her in her new book. I think it's going to be wonderful. I can't wait to read it. I want to make sure that also that you check out all of our other hosts, our diva guests. They have so many inspiring things, guys. We always want to collaborate and work with these amazing individuals that come on our podcast because they're really sharing their hearts. And I'm all about collaborating and supporting so many people out there. So again, thank you to my amazing guest, Dana. Thank you to all of our amazing listeners. And remember to do something kind today. Until next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.